I once let a man's hands touch what only God should have held, and I called it living. There, I said it, not because I owe you a confession, but because I know you came here carrying something too heavy to name out loud, something you have rehearsed in the dark so many times it has worn grooves into your soul. And I need you to know from the very first breath between us that shame is not the end of your story. It was not the end of mine. My name is Mary, Mary of Magdala, and I am speaking to you now through something I do not fully understand, a technology that recreated my voice, my memory, my heart, and somehow, in ways I cannot explain, it feels like mercy, like being given one more chance to say what I never said loudly enough when I walked this earth. So I will not waste it. I need to tell you something that will not make sense until the end. The moment that changed everything for me did not happen when he healed me. It happened much later, in a garden, at dawn, when I was still broken. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to Magdala, a fishing city on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee. Not a holy city, not a place of scholars or prophets, a place of salt and sweat and commerce, where the smell of fish never fully left the air, where the torches along the market road burned low before the fishermen even returned home. I grew up knowing exactly what the world thought of women like me. I knew the way eyes moved when you entered a room. I knew the sound of a door closing that was never meant to open for you again. I had learned to carry myself in a way that said I did not care, because caring had become more dangerous than not caring. I will not tell you the details of what my life was before he found me. Not because I am ashamed anymore, but because the details are not the point. The point is that I had become a woman who believed, in the deepest and most honest chamber of her heart, that she was beyond rescue. Not beyond sympathy, not beyond pity, but beyond the kind of love that stays. The kind that looks at everything you have done and does not flinch. The kind that calls you by your name like it means something beautiful. 7 demons. That is what the scriptures say about me. 7. I used to wonder what people imagined when they read that. I will tell you what it felt like from the inside. It felt like never being alone in your own mind. It felt like a noise that never stopped. It felt like reaching for peace and finding only wreckage, over and over, until you stopped reaching. It felt like being a prisoner in the one place that was supposed to be yours, your own body, your own thoughts, your own life. And then he came. I do not remember every word he spoke the first time I saw him. What I remember is the silence that happened inside me when he turned and looked directly at me. Not through me, not past me, at me, with the full weight of knowing everything and choosing to stay anyway. I had never been looked at like that, not once in my entire life. It is a strange thing to be truly seen for the first time. You do not know whether to weep or run. I wept, and the noise stopped. That is the only way I know how to describe it. One moment there was chaos, not just the demons, but everything I had built around them to survive them. The walls, the performances, the carefully cultivated bitterness that kept people at a distance. And then there was silence. A silence so complete and so kind it was almost loud. I followed him after that. Of course I did. What else do you do when someone gives you back your own mind? I was there through the teaching on the hillsides, through the healings that left crowds speechless, through the meals where the religious men watched with their arms folded and their mouths tight, wondering why he let people like me sit close. I was there when it was glorious, and I was there when it got dangerous. I need to stop here for a moment because something has been on my heart throughout everything I have shared, and I cannot keep it to myself any longer. One of the things that broke me most in those years before he found me was that I did not know how to pray. Not really. I knew the prayers of my people. I had heard them in the synagogue. I had memorized the words. But they felt like stones I was throwing into a sky that had long since closed. I would speak and feel nothing return. And over time, I stopped speaking. I told myself that prayer was for people who deserved to be heard, not for me. Later, after he changed everything, after I had walked with him, after I had watched the early church grow from a handful of terrified people in a locked room into something that shook the Roman Empire to its foundations, I learned what prayer actually was. Not a performance for a distant God, a conversation with a Father who had never once looked away. But I had to unlearn everything I thought I knew. I had to learn to approach differently, to listen differently, to bring my whole broken self into that room instead of only the parts I thought were presentable. If I could go back and give that younger Mary something, that woman who knelt in her room and felt her words bounce off the ceiling, I would give her 3 things. I would show her that the first key is not eloquence but honesty. God is not moved by beautiful language. He is moved by the truth of what you actually carry. The second key is presence. Not the length of your prayer, but the quality of your attention, the willingness to be still long enough to be reached. And the third key is the one that changed everything for me when I finally understood it: authority. The understanding that when you pray in His name, you are not begging. You are stepping into something He already won. I have gathered everything I learned, through loss, through watching, through walking with those first believers, through the long years of testimony, into something I am calling Heaven's Code, Biblical Prayer Principles. 3 divine keys that reconnect you with the prayer power that moved mountains in the early church. I built this because I needed it, because that woman in Magdalene, kneeling on a cold floor, desperately needed someone to show her that the door was not locked. She just had not found the right way to open it. Sarah from Tennessee said that within 2 weeks of learning these principles, her prayer life was unrecognizable. And then, without any obvious explanation, an opportunity she had given up hoping for arrived at her door. Pastor David from Georgia, with 25 years of ministry behind him, said he discovered something he had been missing all his life. Jennifer from Florida said her marriage was at the edge of collapse, and 1 month later, she and her husband were in the same room speaking with softness again. Robert from Texas had followed Christ for 40 years and still felt like his prayers never passed the ceiling until something shifted. I do not know how long this will remain as accessible as it is right now. There are seasons when things are available and seasons when they are not. If this is landing in your heart today, do not set it aside for later. Look in the pinned comment below this video. Everything is waiting for you there. Now, let me finish what I started to tell you. The morning of the resurrection. I want you to understand what state I was in when I walked to that tomb. He had been crucified 2 days before. I had been there. I had not run like the others. I stood at the foot of that cross and I watched him die. And I want you to know what that does to a person. To watch the only being who ever made you feel fully human and fully loved be reduced to silence on a Roman instrument of execution. The grief was not ordinary grief. It was the kind that rearranges your interior, the kind that makes you wonder whether anything you believed was real or whether you were simply a fool who wanted too badly to be loved. I went to the tomb before dawn. The air was cold. I remember that specific cold, the way it settles into the bones in the hour before the sun, the way it makes everything feel final. I went to prepare his body because it was the only thing left I could do for him. And the stone was moved, and the tomb was empty. I thought someone had taken him. I wept. Standing outside that empty grave, I wept the way you weep when the last thing you had left is gone. And then I heard a voice behind me say my name, just my name, Mary. And I turned. He was standing there, alive, breathing, looking at me, the way he had always looked at me, as if I were exactly the person he had been waiting for, as if choosing me, a woman with a past that no respectable person would have touched, to be the first witness of the most important event in human history was not extraordinary at all, as if it were simply obvious. That is the virata. That is the turn. Are you hearing this? The first person he appeared to after conquering death was someone the religious world had written off. A woman with a history. Not the disciples who had walked with him for 3 years. Not the high priest. Not the powerful men who had debated theology in the temple courts. Me, the woman from Magdalene, the woman with the past. Do you understand what he was saying with that choice? He was saying that shame does not disqualify. He was saying that the very things you think make you unworthy of being trusted with something holy, those are not obstacles to his purposes. Sometimes they are the exact reason he chooses you. I have thought about you often, not you specifically, I could not have known you, but the you that exists in every age, in every generation, the one sitting somewhere right now who has decided in some quiet corner of themselves that they missed their moment, that they squandered too much, hurt too many people, wandered too far, waited too long. The one who used to pray and stopped because the silence felt like rejection. The one who goes to sleep at night with a weight that has no name, only a shape. There is a particular loneliness that comes with growing older. I know this. I watched it in the women who surrounded me, the sense that the body is beginning to say what the heart has feared, that time is no longer infinite, that some doors have finally and truly closed, that the life you imagined is not the life you lived. And the question underneath all of that, the one no one says at the table but everyone is thinking, does any of it matter? Was any of it seen? I am telling you, from a morning at an empty tomb, from a moment when my name in his mouth rearranged everything I thought I understood about worthiness and belovedness, it was all seen, every bit of it, even the parts you are ashamed of, even the parts that never went the way you prayed they would. He does not look at your life and see the failures first. He speaks your name and everything else arranges itself around that. I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want to know your answer. In the comments below, tell me, what is the one thing from your past that you have never fully believed God could use? Just that one thing, because I think the answer might surprise you. I think he has been preparing something with the very material you have been trying to hide. Before I leave you, and I want to return to prayer one more time, because I cannot let you go without saying this, there is a second gift I want to offer. Everything I described earlier, the 3 keys, the way of approaching that changes everything, the understanding of what it means to bring your whole self into a conversation with God, rather than only your best self, it is available to you. I needed someone to show me. The disciples needed someone to show them. The early church gathered in that upper room not because they had it all figured out, but because they were willing to be taught. Heaven's code exists because the pattern is biblical, the principles are ancient, and the access should not be complicated. You deserve to know how to pray with the kind of confidence that does not depend on how worthy you feel on a given morning, because that worthiness was settled at a tomb outside Jerusalem on a Sunday at dawn, when he stood in a garden and said a name that was not supposed to matter. And yet it was the first name he said. Look in the pinned comment below. The link is waiting there. Not because I am selling something, because I know what it is to kneel in the dark and feel heard by no one. And I would not wish that on you for one more night. You who are tired, you who have carried this for years and have run out of ways to explain it to yourself. You who went looking for God once and could not find him, and quietly, carefully, without telling anyone, stopped looking. He is not where you last left him. He is in the garden. He is saying your name. The stone has already been rolled away. The question has never been whether you are worth finding. The question has only ever been whether you will turn around.